everybody. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shadi Curry. I have my dear friend, fellow coach, and colleague on Zoom to tell you her story, the amazing Maisie Hill. Hi, Maisie. It's good to have you. I know we're
I'm
already
laughing
enjoying
already.
ourselves. Okay, well, let me introduce you, and then we'll just jump right in. Okay, so Maisie's a master certified life coach, menstrual health expert, best-selling author of the books Period Power and Perimenopause Power. And Maisie uses mindset coaching and awareness of the body's rhythms and responses to help her clients create the life they want. You
That's
talk about all
exactly
the
what
things.
I do.
Yes, that is exactly what you do. Period power. I love that. But we're not here to talk about that today.
Which I love.
At least I know.
It's
But
so
seriously, everyone check out Maisie's books. Go to the show notes because that's like a whole conversation by itself, which we're not having today. Today we're going to talk about divorce and dating and remarriage. But like Maisie's work is amazing. Her books are incredible. So please, even though we're not delving into that work today, please go ahead and check them out. All right, Maisie, hit us with your story.
So I got to say, I just love that we're not talking about any of that stuff, because I go on a lot of podcasts, all the time, but always to talk about my work. And it's kind of only once in a while that I get to dish the dirt on my personal life.
Yes. This is the right podcast for that.
So I'm feeling all the excitement and slight apprehension as well about it.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because it's fun to look back. So the context is, I think, useful background information is my parents divorced when I was quite young. So I have no memory of my parents being together. And I share that because I know some people are kind of socialized to think you'll meet one person and you'll be with them forever. And if you get married, then there's no going back from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have that socialization, which I think is really beneficial and has been really wonderful. But all that to say is that I never really planned on getting married. It was not on my list of what to do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
It just
Like,
wasn't
wasn't
a
a
thing
thing
for
like
me.
high school, all the girls?
No.
Like, what was happening there?
No, I was up for relationships, but marriage, I was like, it just wasn't on my hit list of things that I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
I think I was open to it, but it was never a plan that I had.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's a benefit of your parents just not making it a thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was good. But then I ended up getting married when I was, I think, 21 or 22.
Yeah,
Which,
that was young.
again, not the plan. And, you might wonder why. And I definitely ask myself that question still. But I'd gone on vacation to America. So as you can tell from my accent, I'm British. I grew up here, but I went on holiday to New York to stay with some friends and just kind of experience New York in 2001 and in September 2001. So I was there when the World Trade Center got hit, and I was with someone that morning who in all likelihood would have been a holiday fling. When people talk about, oh, you just go on vacation, you meet someone, you have a fun time, and then that's it.
Yeah,
it probably would have just been that, were for the World Trade Center happening. And we were 4 blocks away from the World Trade Center. We kind of woke up when the first tower got hit. We were watching from the balcony when the second one hit. His mum worked in one of the buildings. We were trying to figure out where she was, and she got out okay, but so many people from that neighborhood didn't. And so we went through this like really traumatic couple of weeks of there was no water supply. We were filling up all the residents' like bathtubs with water, and kind of like really in this intense experience together.
Yeah.
And then weeks later, I went back to the UK, and we maintained the relationship. And I eventually moved to America, and I was there on a student visa, and we were still in a relationship. So we'd been together for a couple of years, something like that. And then it got to the point where it was like, okay, if we want to keep this relationship and live in the same country, we actually need to get married, or I need to marry someone.
Yeah. Were
And
you all, had you always planned to, come over after, or was the relationship like a factor in you deciding to come back?
Yeah, I hadn't planned on coming back. It was only like I met this guy. Now we're in this intense
Mhm.
relationship, particularly because we've gone through this trauma together. And it
Yeah.
was very weird for me coming back to the UK where people hadn't experienced that. Even within New York, people having different
Yeah.
experiences depending on what neighborhood they lived in and things. So
Mhm.
I felt very far away when I came back to the UK, and I found it that hard,
Yeah. Yeah.
which made me then seek out more connection with him and
Right.
maintain that, right?
Yeah. That, because like something like that, that kind of trauma changes you. Like
Yeah.
you're a whole new person after that. I mean, you're still you, but like it's hard to like connect with people who don't get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And like anytime it would come in the news, I would just burst into tears. I was like very triggered by the sound of helicopters for years after, because that was just the sound of the neighborhood afterwards. You just heard helicopters all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's like quite a unique experience to go through this. And, it became the foundation of our relationship.
Mm.
And whilst I was studying and I was living in New York and we were living together, it just became, just the eventual, well, if we're going to stay together and live in the same country, wherever we decide we're going to live, we need to get married, basically.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, well, we'll just have this little wedding, we'll go to City Hall, get dressed up, that kind of thing. And we ended up having this massive wedding.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. I gotta send you the photos of me in the wedding
Did you
dress.
wear a long white dress,
Oh
Maisie?
my gosh, massive. Not only that, I think the most shocking thing when you look at it is I have like hardly any tattoos in it, but I have these huge fake nails as well. It's
So,
so it's
so
so not
I'm
me.
laughing because I cannot imagine the Maisie that I know now in a long white dress with nails. Like, it's so not you.
I know, and I feel like the wedding day is like a kind of what the marriage ended up being.
Mm,
Was like me not being me,
yeah.
right? Because his family really wanted this big wedding. They wanted me to sit there. There's that scene in, I forget if it's in Goodfellas, when they get married and they have to sit at the wedding reception and be handed envelopes of money from all the families.
Yep.
That's what they wanted me to do. And I was like, what? I can't sit there and just have people hand me money. That's so weird. Right. But it was the cultural norm for
Yeah.
him and his family being Italian American. And so it was just this whole day of me not really being me, but trying to be me within it. So we
Mhm.
had this big church wedding. We walked down the aisle to the theme tune from Star Wars, because I was like,
Okay, that part's you.
yeah, I was like, I'm gonna find ways of doing this the way that they want it, but still being me.
Yeah. Were
And
you aware of that dissonance? Did you feel like, oh, this isn't me, but I have my reasons for doing it? Were you conscious of it?
I think I was somewhat conscious of it. Enough to know, I think it was like, this is really important to them. It's actually not so important to me because I've never planned on a wedding or whatever, and it is important. So
Mhm.
like we'll do it. And it's not to say that there weren't parts of it that were fun or enjoyable, or any of those things, but it was like I don't know, it was like stepping into a movie and experiencing something
Mhm.
very far from what your regular life is like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's interesting in that moment, and I know this scenario comes up for a lot of people, women, people socialized as women, and I'm sure um, some socialize as men as well, where it's like, oh, this is important to this other person. There's
Mm.
nothing wrong with that. It's just that there's this other equation where, but what's important to me?
Yes.
It's like
And
you
like,
only
how
have one
can,
half of the equation.
yeah. And it's like, oh, okay, this is important to them. And how can I honor and know that I'm being true to me within that as well? And
Yes. Or just alongside. I think a lot of my
yeah.
clients are very well educated in what men want.
Mm.
Like, okay, men want this, or educated, I'm holding up quotes because, it's just the cultural narrative of how a woman needs to show up for a man. It's like, well, men need this and men need that and men want this and men want that. And then I ask them, well, but what do you want?
Yeah.
And it's like blank stares.
What do you mean? I'm allowed to want things for
Yes.
myself? Yeah. So that was the wedding, and then basically after that I got glandular fever, which I think you call mononucleosis in the
Mm-hmm.
US. So I got that, so I was really ill, and then it reached the point where we needed to apply for the visa so that I could stay in the US, like apply for the green card. And at that point in time, I don't know if it's still the case, but once you applied, you had to stay in the US for 2 years. You couldn't leave.
Oh.
And so I was like, well, before we do that, I want to go home and see my family and like maybe go on holiday with some friends somewhere in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said to me, but I thought now we were married that you wouldn't want to travel. And I was like, oh.
Oh.
And it was like, I just came out through the illness. We had this kind of otherworldly wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd been really ill, and now I'm feeling better, and it's suddenly like the haze parts and you're able to really see with clarity
Yeah.
the differences.
Yeah.
And I was just suddenly like, oh my gosh, he actually thinks that I won't want to travel because I'm married. And it was quite shocking to me. And that just kind of set, I think, a kind of continual, oh, there are really some fundamental
Mm-hmm.
differences here, that
Yeah.
I think when we were going through the bonding and the new relationship and me moving, and like there was always these kind of more high octane activities that
Yeah.
create that dopamine in a relationship, and then suddenly it's like, oh no,
Yeah.
all of those things are out of the way now, and this is who we are.
Yeah.
Like, maybe this wasn't the best plan after all.
Right. Yeah. We can often mistake the dopamine or the feelings or the experiences around us for the person we're with.
Yeah,
Like you're having this
totally.
amazing experience and you think you're having a great time because of the person that you're with, but sometimes it's in spite of the
Oh, I
person
love
that you're
that.
with. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, so that was marriage number one, because I've had two. So that was number one. And yeah, so we ended up separating 7 months after we got married. And I
Yeah.
ended up moving back to the UK. Um, and it was just, yeah, it was a marriage when I was very young that I
Mm-hmm.
never wanted or expected. And yeah, I mean,
How do you feel about it now when you look back at it?
well, I mean, it's like a lifetime ago, right? That's like, because I'm 42 now, so that's two decades ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think I was quite naive and kind of in the thrill of adventure in my life, whatever that looked like,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was a new country or a new relationship or a marriage. Um, and at this point in time, I didn't know that I'm autistic. So I didn't have that understanding as well. And often, one of the autistic traits that some people have, not everyone, but that is like attaching to someone in
Mm.
quite a not always an appropriate way, and like in a creating attachment and connection that is maybe not the best, or I
Yeah.
don't know. I can't think of a way to describe it. But now I look back, I'm like, oh man, I was so young.
Yeah. Do you feel regret, or like, do you think, hey, I hurt this person, or I hurt people in that
No,
situation? Okay.
I don't have that. And he and I communicated kind of long after, because in the breakup, you know, he thought I'd stolen things. But there were all these like crazy rumors going round about how
Mm,
I'd acted that weren't true. And
gotcha.
so we did end up having a conversation by email years later, when he was doing some kind of inner growth work on himself and wanting to understand things. And you know, he was like asking me some questions, so we had a very honest conversation then about things. So I
Yeah.
don't feel any regrets. I don't think there was yeah, I don't. I mean, it was also so long ago, it's quite possible that
Yeah.
I'm omitting things because I just haven't thought about them.
Ask that because these this story is more common than one would think.
Oh, I'm relieved.
And that's why I brought it up, because I think people who have, I eloped with my ex-husband, and there was a similar, very scandalous, it was a huge scandalous thing on my college campus, blah, blah. There were like a lot of rumors. And I look back and I realized that like there's a whole bunch of people who do that. A whole bunch of people elope.
Yeah.
And I think the narrative around relationships and marriage and just how much drama and entertainment people make of it shames that very common youthful mistake
Mm.
in a way that maybe we don't shame the 21-year-old boy who does drugs for 6 months straight and then
Yeah.
comes out of it and is like, okay, I'm done. Right? Like youthful indiscretions, so to speak, are very
Yeah.
common, one or the other. And this is just another one. And I know a lot of women who carry shame from their version of that.
Oh, I love the way you've put that, because yeah, it's helpful to think about, well, what else do 21, 22, 23-year-olds do?
Oh, they do a
I'm
lot of
like, oh
stuff.
yeah. Yeah.
I have a couple of those.
I'm thinking, yeah, you have more experience there than me, but yeah, it's true. So, you know, on balance, not so bad. You know, could have been a lot worse. And, you know, I think again, just very grateful to have the parents that I do, who were both just like, you know, because I think I felt at the time when I told them a sense of failure,
Mm,
you know, and but they were both just like, well, if you don't want to be there, don't make yourself be there.
yeah, that's amazing. That is such an amazing gift.
Yeah.
Such an amazing gift, to have your parents who are that self-aware and that loving and who let you be who you were, even if that changed. Like
Yes.
she wanted to be there. Okay, now she doesn't want to be there. Let's go.
Yeah.
Amazing support.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Mm. Yeah, so that was marriage number one. And then marriage number two, you know, people like to repeat themselves throughout their lifetime, and this is definitely a case of that. So I started, I heard from someone in who, again, in New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's on brand.
Exactly. I heard from someone in New York, and they emailed me and we just started talking. And, you know, and it just became a romantic relationship, an online romantic one. So
Were you
not through the
working
apps.
each dating app,
No, it
or
wasn't
just
through the
like a
dating apps.
chat?
We'd met each other a couple of times in social situations.
Gotcha.
Um, and I guess he must have heard that I was single at that point in time and just emailed.
How long
And
after the first marriage?
years and years. So I'd had another long-term relationship in between those, like a 5-year
Okay.
relationship. So I don't know, 7, 8 years, something like
Okay.
that. Um, and so we had this long distance relationship for 2 years or so. At the time, I was studying here in the UK. He was in New York. I was also in China for a semester as part of my degree. But we got married very, very quickly. So we got married like 6 months in.
Okay. Do you know why? What was the...
Again, it was this idea of like, well, if we want to be together, you know, if we want to be together longer than this many days at a time, then
Gotcha.
this is the way to do it. And, you know, I think we were just also in love, and I don't know, we just
It just seemed
went
like the
for
right
it.
plan. Yeah, and I think one of the building blocks of like a healthy we as a species, I feel like we just have no idea what
Yeah.
what goes into a relationship. And so
I
of
think,
course it would make sense.
and I think my thinking at the time is, oh, this is different. Right. This is different because it's not about like lust or connection in the moment. I think my thinking was, this is a mature relationship because we're communicating through email and things, and we're talking, and it's not based on the kind of heat of the moment physical attraction or being swept along by your hormones. It was like this different thing. But in the midst of that, I think there was that fundamental, it's like we built this mental, emotional connection to each other without really knowing each other physically, in terms of what's it like for me to be with this person, and how do our nervous systems relate with one another, and you know, all of those things that we can kind of miss out on when we're talking about the online world.
The long distance. And our brains are great at filling in the gaps. Like your brain will just imagine what it's going to be like. So you're like, oh, I wonder what's going to be like to share money with this person. Your brain just fills in the gap. Like it just builds the story.
Like.
Yes. Based on him saying this, it's going to be like this. Okay, done.
That's so true. That's also, it's hilarious. But it's even things like, so one of the things that I mention in my books is like, how does someone smell to you? Because there's this research around, you know, between men and women, there's research around if a woman is on the pill versus not on the pill, who is she attracted to by scent? And they do these like t-shirts, they put t-shirts in a bag and you sniff the bag and all of these things. And basically there's this particular gene expression and compatibility between you and another person that has a lot to do with when you sniff their armpit. Are you attracted to them? Like, could you hang out in their armpit forever? And that's something that I used to ask my clients. I'd be like, okay, if you're on birth control, if you're on the pill and you're planning on marrying or having children with someone, what do you think about the idea of coming off it for a short period of time to see if you still feel attraction and still like the smell of this person?
That's amazing.
It's actually like quite significant consequences if there is a mismatch there.
Yes. Yeah. And I know that because both of my husbands smell different. And I had noticed, like, I have my nose is like super sensitive. It's annoying. Like, it's supposed to be, I think I was going to be in caveman days. I was the sniffer for the tribe. Except now I just like sniff everything and it's not useful. I was just laughing too hard.
But it's true because, you know, I'm very sensitive. You know, I'm like very sensitive to sensory input just as a whole. But I wasn't getting this input from this person because we're just developing this relationship online. So there's this like close mental and emotional intimacy, but a lack of knowing each other in that way. And I kind of remember smelling him the first time and like just not being into how he smelled. But I overrode that because I'm like, well, you know, I just chose to see things through a different lens and ignore a sense of knowing within me.
Yes, 100%. I think relationships and this kind of discussion is where it's not just your thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, because I think often a lot of coaching or teaching in traditional religious settings and in thought work is all about, well, so your partner smells like this. Well, you can change your thoughts about how he smells, except that's just a lot of work.
Yeah, and why would we want to?
Right. Like,
You
what if
know,
we just like picked someone that just like made it generally effortless to be with them?
yeah. Yeah, and look, whereas like now, my partner Paul, we've been together for 9 years. I love how he smells.
Mm,
I just love how he smells.
yeah.
Like I'm like, I don't use. I just love like smelling his armpit at the end of the day. You know, when ordinarily people would maybe feel like a bit self-conscious about how they smell because their scent
Mhm.
is coming through. I'm like, oh no, I love it. I love it.
Yes.
And you can still annoy the absolute crap out of me at
Oh,
times.
yeah.
And I will, need to manage my mind around some of the things you do or don't do. But there's that fundamental connection and attraction and compatibility.
Yes, yes. Compatibility is huge. Attraction is huge. And a lot of my clients worry that, well, I'm only attracted to these bad guys and I'm never attracted to the nice guys. And then they think it's because they're broken.
Oh, well, can I say something about that?
Yes, please.
Okay, if you're someone who does this, you have to pay attention to your menstrual cycle if you have one, because there's also research that you're attracted to quote unquote the bad guys around ovulation
Hmm.
because there's
Yeah.
this sense of like virility and fertility and strong gene expression and things. And then the second half of your cycle, when your body thinks there's a chance you could be pregnant, so it's more concerned with safety and provision of resources.
Hmm.
That's when we're more
Yeah.
attracted to the nice guys. But the thing is that in the run up to ovulation is when we're most typically, not always, but there's usually an increase in sexual desire. So there's that
Yeah.
correlation between increase in sexual desire at the same time when you're attracted to the bad guys. And so
Yeah.
those two things kind of all come together, like, oh, I only have the hots for bad guys. But meanwhile, there's this other part of the cycle where you're like, oh no, I'm up for like meaningful conversation and connection and who is going to help to provide resources for me. And I say that
Yeah.
knowing that like you're all capable of providing resources for yourself, but on a
That's
on a
that's how our brains are still working with that like primitive desire.
yeah, it's like, am I going to be able to lie here on the sofa and watch Netflix and he bring me the ice cream from the freezer?
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting is also like you can have the bad guy that you're attracted to and the nice guy that you're attracted to later. And it's possible that neither one is the right guy for you.
Yeah,
It's entirely because there's so many layers to
yes,
attraction.
yeah.
And, you know, and maybe we can just talk about this when we get to your current partner and how you met and all that. Like, what are the layers that all come together to create that compatibility for you guys? But let's keep going with the second marriage.
Okay. So the second marriage, yeah, so we were married for I think a couple of years before we separated, and again it was just there were some struggles in the relationship. Some of them now I'm like, oh yeah, it's because how my autism was influencing things, but also just some yeah, some things that were causing issues, and we went to see a therapist together, relationship therapist, and she kind of highlighted, I think it would be more beneficial for him to have some therapy on his own first, and then we come back together.
Mm,
And I was kind of like, really? Like, okay. So I kind of prepared myself for that. And then he just never contacted her to do any sessions or anything like that. And I just felt an unwillingness on his part to show up to the relationship in the way that I wanted him to. And
mhm.
I don't judge him for that. I just think he was unable to at that time,
Yeah.
right? For whatever reason.
Yeah.
But that was also his decision, his choice, even with the influences that were going on. And so we called it a day.
Yeah. How would you like, and I like to sometimes checking on like, I talk to my clients about like creating a relationship that's effortless. Now, of course, there is work in
Yes.
marriage, you know, your partner's going to annoy you, all the things, but there's a level of like, just like the work is productive. The work you're doing in one relationship is productive, but then you're doing the work in this other relationship and it's not productive.
Here's how I think about it. Well, there's a couple of things. One is like, does it feel like we're doing the work and we're building up together? Or does it feel like I'm digging in the earth trying to get somewhere on my own? You know, it's like, are we going up together, or is it just taking us down and down and down?
Oh, that's such a good way to put it. That's such a good way to put it. Yeah,
And
I call
then
it a hostage situation. I say, is it a hostage situation or is it like, what's happening here? So I might be a little dramatic. I think yours is a little more reasonable
I
description.
love it. Hostage situation. That's perfect. But I also think, you know, my tendency, particularly being socialized as female, is to overfunction in relationships. Whether the other person wants or needs me to or not, that's just kind of my go-to. And so the way that I think about whether I'm over functioning or not and be able to know that about myself is I'm willing to help someone. I'm willing to give them like I call it like a bunk up is what we call it in the UK. So if there was a garden wall that was a bit taller than you and someone was trying to get over that garden wall, like you'd maybe be willing to get on your knees and kind of put your hands together to give them that bunk up to get them over the wall, but they still have to get themselves over the wall.
Yeah.
Right. So that's me. I'm like, I'm willing to do that.
Right.
But often what I was doing in relationships was over functioning, which for me is like, I'm heaving them over the wall, whether they've said they want to go over the wall or not.
You have them on your back and then you're climbing the wall.
And just like doing far too much. And I think that's part of why my current relationship is so successful, is because I don't do that as much. I think there's still places where that's just my tendency. I do it, but far, far less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there are also like relationships where some people, men in the context of, you know, this conversation, request for that overfunctioning, almost like pull on the woman to overfunction. Some of them by like being super passive, like I'm just not going to do anything, or I'm going to break everything and you're going to have to clean it up. And what happens in those situations is then women tend to overfunction because we're not willing to just let things fall. We're not willing for things we're so attached to the outcome.
Yes, definitely. And I think there were parts of that, and, you know, particularly my career, you know, now I'm a coach, but back then I was a practitioner. So I was like literally in the business of helping people. And so I think, you know, my personality, my tendencies, my career choice all influenced that as well. But it was, I think I just noticed like a lack of care towards me as well in times when I was, you know, really quite struggling. And I won't go into the specifics, but, you know, it took working with the therapist for the therapist to go, that's not okay. Like that's a standard in a loving relationship, that's not okay. But it hadn't occurred to me because I'm like very resourceful, good at taking care of myself. I can come up, you know, I can be very understanding. So I was just coming up with reasons why it was okay, like that was acceptable in a relationship to me. And so part of that was also just saying, actually, that's not acceptable. This is what I want in a relationship. And if you're unable or unwilling to meet me there, then this isn't a relationship that I want to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. Our socialization as women is just, you take care of everyone and that's it. And so it can take a long time for it to occur to us that, hey, I need caring for too.
Yeah,
exactly. I need to be cared for and supported, and and even asking for that mutual reciprocity then becomes hard. So for a lot of people, it's actually hard to ask for it. So yeah.
I mean, it is hard for me to ask often because it doesn't even occur to me to ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's like the benefits of being someone who's very capable and resourceful. But there's also like the downside is that I forget that other people can help me with these things. And this is quite common among people who are autistic as well. And, you know, Paul, my partner, he'll often say, like, why don't you just ask me for help with that? And I'm like, I didn't think about it. And he's like very willing. So that's the interesting
Yeah.
thing. Even with someone who is willing and able to help, if we're not giving
Yes.
them opportunities, then they're unable to. And that can be frustrating on both parts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. The audacious asks is how our colleague Serena Hicks puts it. She's like, yeah, you need to make some audacious asks. Like, even if it feels, find something to ask for. Make a support request, no matter how small, every day.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
I love that.
Okay, so after that relationship ended, how did you feel after? Like, you're like, okay, this is my second divorce. Like, how did that register with you?
I think I felt solid with it. I felt good with it because I knew that I had shown up in the way that I wanted to.
Right.
You know, I think I probably stayed in it longer than, you know, maybe I could have, because there's a couple of conversations that we had, and I just remember being really astonished at how he was thinking about things.
Right.
It just was very, very different. And I remember thinking, wow, that's an interesting approach to life. Like, it was just so,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, I mean, I'm kind of tempted to get into the details here, but I don't know how useful it is. But it was just, you know, when someone says something, you're like, whoa, it's just
Yeah,
so
I
radically
know that
different.
moment. Like, how did I miss that? Like,
Yeah,
it's that moment where you're like, wait, who is this person, and how did I
yeah,
miss that this is who he is?
exactly. But I had those things, but I think I don't know, just in this place of like, I was committed to staying. Like, oh no, we're married. You know, I'm not 21 or 22, whatever, this time round. You know, I can do this differently. And I think there was a period of time where I felt some kind of discomfort with the idea that a second marriage was ending. So I stayed. But then once I made the decision to end it, I think I did my processing in the relationship.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I know this one was long distance. So, I mean, in general, it's just harder to see who the person is. Did you have any inkling at all? Were there any moments, even long distance, that you were like, oh, I don't know, this might be something we need to work out later?
Yeah, probably. I mean, if for that specific example, I can think of other conversations he had about other people
Right.
that, like, my inner guidance system was like, oh, and the antennae are going up here. Like, what's this about? That's an interesting approach to life, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I was thinking, oh, you know, that's when I was probably, you know, more blasé about things. Like, oh, that's just that relationship. That's, you know, that
Yes.
wouldn't happen here.
Yeah. Yes. 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 We do think that. There are times when
Um,
that's true. There are times when that's true. You know, a person can have like a relationship and struggling with a family member and all that, but you want to double check. Like, okay, I
yeah,
want to make sure this is the exception and
yeah,
not the rule.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a positive person. You know, like I think I have a lifting up effect on people. And I think I
That's true.
managed to, yeah. And I think I managed to find men in both my marriages who were had tendencies towards bitterness and resentment and blame.
Mm.
And them meeting me kind of brought them up.
Yeah.
Right? It's like they had this,
Yeah.
and I think so. I think how they were in the relationship with me was affected by who I am and the kind of
Right.
influence I tend to have on people. And
Yeah.
don't be listening to this thinking like I'm like that all the time. I require a lot of time on my own. Right, which is
Yeah.
also probably why a long distance relationship really worked for me. Like I have a lot of long distance
Yes.
friendships now
Yeah.
because that style of communication really works for me. So we all have our moments, we all have our limitations and areas of growth, etc. But I think that was also kind of at play in both marriages. So they were kind of like sparked up a bit by me and
Mm-hmm.
how I was, and then with time, we all reveal our real humanness, including me. And then I was like, oh, here I am being like positive and kind of quite
Yeah.
a go-getter and like quite ambitious, with men who are more kind of heavy.
Heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
For those of us who've been married to in toxic, abusive marriages, we have a word for that. I don't know if it applies to your partners, but we call them emotional vampires. Just gonna say, heavy is another way you could say that. I'm just saying. Yeah, and I think one of the things I try to tell my clients in that, and we this is not stuff that any of us really knows. This is stuff that I've learned along the way. Is that we sort of like, I won't say be attracted. We tolerate. Tolerate is the word. We tolerate those situations because I think we forget just how precious we are, how
Yes.
precious our energy is, how precious our bodies are, how
Mm.
precious our futures are, how precious our goals and our career and our work.
Yeah.
Because when we see ourselves, which I mean, I don't know many women who are socialized to see themselves as this very precious vase full of golden light. You can't just let anybody come up to that,
Right.
you
And
know?
I can remember, because in the final year of the marriage, it was like the final year of my degree. I was also doing a postgrad diploma at the same time whilst working, paying the bills. Like there was
Mm-hmm.
a lot going on. And I remember like I finished my degree and it was at the point where, okay, I'm going to get my first clients. This is as an acupuncturist. I was already working as a doula and doing other therapies, but this was as an acupuncturist. I'm now qualified. And I came up with this package that was like, I can still remember it, 12 sessions, like 3 months of focusing on your cycle and fertility. And it was £750 and like you could pay all at once or this. And I remember him saying, who's going to pay that?
Mm.
Right.
Wow.
And I was like, of course
Wow.
someone's going to pay that. And so I got my first client. And somehow I think that must have been one of the final kind of nails in the coffin when that happened,
Yeah.
because I ended up taking that check and buying myself what I call my divorce handbag.
Did you
It's
know
the
it was your divorce handbag at the time?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did. I was like, I'm just going to take that money and I'm going to buy myself this handbag from this company in New Zealand that I loved. And now, I'm not really a handbag person. I've only got two. But anytime I use that bag, I kind of still get a little thrill from
Yeah.
the memory, the significance of it, because it was like my first earnings in my career at that time.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was also the decision of, this is the end of the relationship. I want
Mm.
something more for myself, regardless of whether that's with someone else or not. It's just, this
Yeah.
is what I want, rather than this is what I'm willing to put up with.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. All right. Well, now we want to hear all about Paul.
Paul, the amazing Paul.
Yes. How did you meet? Where do we find him? Because I've got ladies lined up for the next set of Pauls.
So we first locked eyes at this like daytime party that was happening for this radio station that he DJs for.
Oh my God. Okay, wait, hang on. I'm so excited right now, and I'm so happy because like meeting in person, you
Yeah.
met in person.
Oh, it gets better than that. So we
Oh,
didn't really meet. We noticed each other at this
yes,
place.
yes.
And then I could tell that he had gone because I felt like the disconnect happen. And so he'd
Mhm.
gone. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then about a month later, I was at Notting Hill Carnival, which is a big deal here in the UK. And I'd been at Carnival all day and then gone to an after party. And I was talking to a friend, and then she just went, "Oh, you have to meet my friend." And it was Paul. And she just introduced us. And I was like, "Oh,
Oh
that's the
my
guy
gosh.
from that party like a month or so ago." Um,
Wow.
so we
What was
talked all
different?
night.
Like what, like all of that, like if can you what was going on in your life? Because I it's always about your life and your energy and how you're showing up,
Mm,
right? Because a lot of people chalk all this up to luck. Like, oh, she just got lucky. She just happened to be at the party. And then she just happened to
mm,
lock eyes with that guy. And I do not believe that that's how things like that happen. First of all, you were at the party.
yes. But I wasn't at the party to meet someone, either of
Well,
them.
right. But you showed up. Like, it's all about showing up. And so, like, and I think that's kind of what I wanted to pull out of that moment was how were
Yeah.
you showing up that made that moment happen?
So I I was just out to have fun. I was with other people at the first party, not at Carnival. I kind of went on my own to that, but I
You went home on a Friday night
I knew
watching Netflix.
no, I wasn't, but I knew I was already having a good time, and it wasn't like in the
Mm,
past when I've been kind of interested in dating or whatever that I've shown up to events like that looking for someone. Right, I wasn't looking. I was open to it, but that wasn't the purpose of me being there because I felt um very solid in who I was in that chapter of my life. Like I was having success in my career. I I was just doing my thing.
yeah, I love that. Like, and was there a difference in how you like saw yourself and felt about yourself then than like in prior to the other
Yeah,
relationships?
definitely. I think up until that period of my life, it was very much about, you know, unable to be alone or
Mhm.
feeling lonely or searching for someone else. And we've spoken about socialization today, but just in terms of, oh, someone else completes me. And even if that's
Yes.
not like the thought that you're aware of, it
Mhm.
shows up in just your whole vibe. It's like when you're looking for someone to complete you, even if you're not aware
Yeah.
that that's what you're doing, there is
Yeah.
that. And then we get that, but then we realize actually this isn't
This
this
is
isn't
they brought their own half, not the other half of me. Yeah.
um but yeah, I was just having fun. I wasn't expecting to meet someone. I was open to it. We spoke, we had a lot of fun, and then I left or he left. I can't remember. There'd been quite a bit of rum by that point in time, I will say. Um, but then I got the bus home, and I remember thinking, I need to find a way to contact him. So I went to the radio station that he DJs on and went through all of their presenters, and there were many. And of course, he would have the one that's alphabetically at the end of the alphabet. But I found him, and then I found him on Twitter, and then we started talking over Twitter.
Wow.
So,
So you
um,
put yourself out there. You were like, I like this guy and I want to have a conversation.
yeah, I'm very good at doing that. I think that's kind of like, I think it's a me thing, but I think it's also an autism thing of just like, you know, I am just very much like, this is what I want, and I'm not going to wait around for anyone else to give it to me. I'm going to go and get it.
Yes, we should all be like that. Like, seriously. Like, I just call it being the CEO of your dating life. It's like, okay, you're running the ship. How do you want it to go?
Yes,
Like, where do you want it to
exactly.
go? What kind of guy do we want? Where is he? And how do we let him know that we're available?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we just started talking over Twitter, and then we kind of, eventually kind of officially started our relationship a few months later.
Yeah.
And then we went on holiday together like a month after that. And I think I basically moved in when we got back. And it's been 9 years.
Love it. So
Yeah.
how did you know he was the one? How did you know he was, different from what you experienced? And like,
Mm.
what gave you hope that this could be different?
Mm. There was the attraction, the high, the connection
Mhm.
was there, but it felt there was enough of a kind of grounded foundation and enough points of connection and compatibility
Yeah.
to go beyond that.
Right.
And I think when we were talking about our childhoods, which were different, but there were similarities there, and it felt like, okay, there was that mutual understanding
Hmm.
there. Um, we both also have a very low tolerance for nonsense, and there's I think part of what's made our relationship so successful is we really respect each other a lot.
Yeah.
But we both also know that the other one wouldn't tolerate any nonsense. So
Yeah.
any talking out of turn, blaming, name calling, shouting, neither
Yeah.
one of us are going to put up with that,
Yeah.
which means that neither of us ever do it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And did you feel um like when and I know you probably weren't going down these points like at that time, but I believe that every woman, we have these sort of like checkpoints in us,
Mm.
but we just kind of override them or we skip some of them. Like, were you thinking, okay, intellectually, we're kind of on the same wavelength and we temperamentally, this is working and our futures are working in terms of where we want to go? Did you think more in those terms?
Mm.
Or was it more like, oh, we're on the same wavelength? Like,
I
what
think
were the things, like your criteria? I guess maybe that's the word. How was your criteria
mm,
different?
yeah, this is interesting. I don't think I've ever thought about it like this.
we,
So what was
Most
my
of us don't, except though I
no.
have to talk to my clients about it every day. And we get very granular because they come with so much. People are telling them all kinds of things. The men are telling them all kinds of things. They are second guessing themselves. I'm like, you know what? Let's just make it very practical. Like we
Mm.
just take away all the drama and say, here's what compatibility looks like according to psychologists. Where
Yeah.
are you? Where's your, and then I just say, well, then that's what you're looking for. And it really just cuts out. But I
Mm.
like to take material from successful relationships
Yeah.
that my clients can kind of hear it, not from my like coach list, but like just from a regular human perspective.
Well, I think it was like something that felt really important to me, and I think I was aware of this at the time, is does it feel like this person is going to let me evolve and grow?
Ooh, I love that.
Right, because I'm so into learning, I'm always evolving and changing, and Paul and I kind of joke about that's also why we're still together, is because he gets a new Maisie every however many months or
My
years.
husband Ken is it's the same thing. Mine is like every 6 months.
So there was that, because like some people, they're like, well, this is how I know you and this is who you are to me, and now you have to always be that person.
Yeah.
It's like, No, not really. That's not how I
Yeah.
how I roll. But I will also say that Paul is he's very solid in who he is. And
Yeah.
so he actually hasn't of course he's changed and evolved, but that fundamental core Paul has
Yeah.
always remained the same. And I think that's something that he knew about himself. So that's the thing. I think
Mhm.
he knew himself very well
Yeah.
already. He didn't need me to educate him about who he was and help him or
Yes.
whatever. I think he was just like, I'm great, take it or leave it. And I think I was the same, you know. It's like
Yeah.
still now he'll like compliment me on things. I'm like, yep, I know. And we
Yeah.
laugh about it. I'm like, well, it's true. I know I'm
I'm
fantastic.
amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's think about how much energy is freed up
Yeah.
for both people. Like you have just so much energy to grow and evolve and be who you are and contribute both
Yeah.
in the relationship, outside of the relationship, because you're not like dragging anyone along. And then he's
Yeah.
free to just be himself. Like, you
Yeah.
know,
There is
he's like my
that
husband. My husband is free to like read, I don't know, close to 200 books a year. Cause I'm like, yeah, you do you.
well, that's the thing. There's that mutual acceptance as well as the respect.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like time on my own. I like quiet. I like to just think the things in my brain. Whereas Paul's someone who's like much more into conversation and being social and things like that. But we never expect each other to be anyone other than who we are.
Yeah.
And we find um, we find the ways to make it work.
Yeah.
It's never, and that doesn't stop us from having desires or preferences that we would like from each other.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, we're not like asking ridiculous things of each other that we're never going to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
But I think something else that was really key is I've always felt very safe with Paul. Like just like we can be together. And it's not like I've experienced awful traumas or things that would make me feel unsafe in relationships, but there was still, things from my upbringing that had an impact on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's, this part, I think, in all of us where we're looking for, is this someone that I can be with? Like, do I
Yeah.
feel safe with this person?
Yeah. Can I trust them?
Yeah. And like,
Like, or
is
do I
there
have to
that?
look over my shoulder?
Yeah, which I've definitely had because I've had, you know, that 5-year relationship that was a big one on trust and trust being broken.
Yeah.
So I think probably I had had enough distance from that relationship to be able to trust someone, but also I wasn't being presented with someone who I needed to work on trusting them because actually they're not someone
Yes.
that I should trust.
Yes, yes, yes. That is so good. And I love that you said it that way because I think a lot of women like second guess themselves or they see themselves as broken. It's like, well, I'm not opening myself up to guys. I'm not trusting. I'm not intimate. I'm like, listen, half of them you can't trust. Let's just go. So let's just, it's
Yeah.
okay if you feel like in this moment you can't trust someone. That's okay. You're not supposed to trust everyone out there.
Mm,
You're supposed to check for safety and then you
yeah.
trust. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
And he's just also, he's a lot of fun. He
Yeah.
makes me laugh like nothing else. And believe me, when I start laughing, I cackle like you wouldn't believe. And so, like, there's just a lot of humor and lightness. And I think that is really helpful, especially when we're um, talking about things that are challenging. Like, often we're able to laugh and make fun of each other and make fun of ourselves. And that's, because we have a kid. He's about to be 7 years old. We definitely went through, a stage kind of in toddlerhood, I guess, when it felt like we just got a bit tit for tat. Who's doing this? Who's doing that? I don't
Mhm.
feel this. I'm not getting this,
Yeah.
that side of things. Thank goodness for coaching, because
Yes.
I think that tit for tat could have stayed for a long time and been really harmful and unproductive.
Mhm.
So yeah, thank goodness for
Yeah.
coaching.
I totally hear you on that. My one-on-one coach is Amelia Kennedy, and she's actually a fair play coach.
Oh,
She's
is
also a
she?
feminist coach. Oh,
I
she's
love the fair play stuff. Yeah, yeah. So
yes,
good.
yes. And I wanted to highlight that just because I think we're not also educated on how children coming into the mix changes things. It doesn't
Mm,
mean that a either party is bad or something's wrong. Of course, we are socialized where there's more on the woman's plate, things like that. But we don't always have the tools to navigate that. And tools are available. And I'm glad there's more tools coming out, and coaches like Amelia who are like she's just amazing at that. Like she's amazing at like helping me like, okay, so what do you want? Like when I'm venting, she's like,
mm.
okay, so like you're in control of your life, first of all. You can
Always a helpful reminder.
reminder like you are choosing this. We know why. And so yeah, I totally get that. And that's like a whole education on its own. But
Mm.
again, like you said, you were building with someone, even as you were navigating that and trying to get through that. It wasn't dragging down, it was finding ways to build and grow through
Yeah.
it.
And
Yeah.
something that the wonderful Maggie Reyes, who I worked with doing relationship coaching as well, is that she was just like, we just want to know, are they willing to?
Yes.
Are they
Oh,
willing
so
to look
good.
at this? Not judging like
Yes.
their current ability to do it to the degree that we want them to,
Mhm.
but just, are they willing to do it? And I have to say, Paul, and he says this himself, he's like, I pretty much do anything you want me to do. I just need to know what it is.
Oh,
And
oh my God, I'm gonna tear up. So amazing. Ladies listening, non-binary
they
persons,
do
everyone
exist.
on here, they do exist. Whatever kind of relationship you're looking for, good humans who will show up for you really, really, really do exist. And this is why I tell these stories. This is why I love stories like yours. And I always want to bring, you know, people like you on the podcast to talk about just, I don't even like to call it success, because relationships like yours are supposed to be normal,
Mm,
not success.
yeah.
You know, I love that. I love that. Way to go, Paul.
He's the best.
Yes. And so are you, Maisie. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story so vulnerably. I know it's going to help so many people out there. Like you just dropped all of the wisdom, even
Well,
as we were laughing and talking
thank
about
you for having me. It's yeah, it's been really helpful and interesting to look back on things um and understand them with a new perspective. So thank you for giving me the space to do that.
it. Yeah, my pleasure. So let's talk about your work a little bit.
Okay.
Like, what do people get if they're like, yeah, I want to work with Maisie? Like, what is like just there before, usually your typical clients before and your typical clients after?
Well, typically before, my clients are like really held back, and they're like things that they want for their lives that they just feel aren't doable, usually just because they have a whole load of things getting in the way, like perfectionism, people pleasing, um not thinking, like we said, it's okay to want things and to go for them.
Mhm.
And just my work is all about just learning those skills, learning how to manage your mind, learning how to work with your body's responses, learning how to show up to things that feel challenging to you, whether it's like having a conversation with your partner or your boss, and just like stepping into ownership of their lives and what they want them to look like. So I have a podcast called The Maisie Hill Experience. My book's period power, perimenopause power, and I have an online membership called the Flow Collective. So they're the ways to work with me and to listen to my work and hear what I'm all about.
Awesome. And we will have all of those links in the show notes. So please check Maisie's work out. Maisie, it's been my absolute pleasure to have you on to just hang out with you again today. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everyone. Thank you for your time and attention today. We appreciate it. We will see you next time.